Okay, we now welcome on to the show for the first time Caroline Di Russo, Sky News contributor, Spectator Australia contributor. Caroline, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, how you going?
Awesome. So we wanted to talk to you about your article in the Spectator Australia yesterday. So Caroline, 59,000 people have signed a petition to sue the government for inaction on climate change. Now, as a commercial litigator, someone with familiarity with the law, is it going to work?
Oh, not in Australia. It's going to be very, very difficult in Australia. There's a whole raft of issues. In short, probably not. There could be some potential pathway in the future, but as things stand, I can't see how it's going to work. Can't see it.
So Pete and I were brainstorming because we like the idea of suing the government to go after things that we want to see change in the world. I know you say like maybe it's just like the suing the government won't get up, but what if we sue the government because jaywalking is still a crime? Would that work?
So you want to be able to sue the government for the things that you want to be able to sue for, but not necessarily what other people want to be able to sue for?
Yes.
That's correctly right.
That is 100% the way we want to go about it.
Look, you're probably going to suffer the same difficulty as your friends with the Change.org petition.
Okay, so not carrying a beer down the street, that's not going to work either.
Oh, yeah, no, you won't be able to do that.
Oh,
there's no one you can sue to do that. That's already prohibited, mate.
Damn. All right, well, we'll keep going. But to the petition itself, like I'm not against young people taking an interest in politics or trying to mobilise their friends and family about it. But, suing the federal government, all this stuff about like, Andrew Forrest is a parasite because he's only donating $70 million when he's worth so much more. Yeah. There's like, there's this tragedy of the bushfires that everyone wants to pitch in and help out, but there's like this like point scoring and name calling about it that's sort of diminishing and getting a little bit toxic out there.
Yeah, it is, and it's really unfortunate because it is a national tragedy, and people have died, and a lot of property has been destroyed. A lot of wildlife has been killed in the process, but everyone seems to be yelling into the wind, and no one seems to be talking to each other. So it's that whole listening because you want to respond, not because you're actually hearing what the other person is saying. And so there's arguments on both sides, and there's obviously a fair bit of middle ground, but no one's taking the middle ground.
Now, Carol,
everyone is like, it's either don't believe in climate change at all, and it's only to do with forest management, and forest management is a huge part of it. But then there's the other side, which is, it's only climate change, and the only way we can fix this is by wearing overalls and eating sawdust.
Now, Caroline, the reason we're speaking to you this morning is because of a piece you wrote in The Spectator about the petition. You also wrote a piece in The Spectator where you mentioned that where you write about an article written in the ABC, which was that fragile masculinity is the biggest obstacle to climate action. Now, where did that come from, and is aggressive masculinity the best path forward?
Oh, look, I remember waking up in the morning and seeing that someone had shared it on Twitter, and it's the whole thing where you read something all the way to the bottom and you still don't understand how you can possibly get from point A to point B. The argument is so tenuous, but it's basically that because men have this fragile masculinity, and so they have to drive fast cars and eat meat to feel like properly masculine, that those things are going to be like the end of the planet and we're all going to die. And obviously that's absolute rubbish. So I felt the need to go to town on them for that one, because that was peak stupidity. It was so silly.
I actually was able to figure out how we got from point A to point B on that article, because when you get to the bottom, it says that the author is a professor of gender and war. And I was like, oh, so that's how we got here. Right.
Yeah, which the conjunctive there is completely irrelevant. It's not gender and war. She's a professional in gender war.
Oh, gender war. I thought it was gender and war. I was like, okay, that's a weird intersection.
It is gender and war. I'm just saying that the conjunctive is irrelevant.
Yes, you don't need the and. There's also
the end.
Another one that I want to talk about is the brand Tiffany's, like the jewelry brand. Everyone knows what Tiffany's is. But Tiffany's calling it for bold and decisive climate action in a full-page ad in the paper, and said, we stand with Australia. You said this was a motherload of hypocrisy. Like, does anyone want to tell Tiffany's where diamonds come from?
Yeah, and then, correct, they're mined, precious metals are mined. There is no mining process on the planet that is carbon neutral or I mean, if mining in general wasn't an issue, why do we have so much regulation around it? Why there's so much need for environmental approvals? Okay, I know coal mining is the great evil at the moment, but every type of mining has really strict environmental approvals around it because none of it really is none of it's carbon neutral. So for Tiffany's to come out and say, climate change is an issue when their entire business is founded upon mining of some sort of mineral or gemstone or otherwise, was just so completely hypocritical. I actually was shocked, and I don't know who in their PR department, like, does someone not tap someone on the shoulder and just go, maybe we should think about this a little harder before we go and put out a statement like that?
Yeah, it's like all the money that you spend putting out like this full page ad where the only point seems to be to increase the company's PR. Like, you didn't want to donate that to the bushfires and just, not mention it?
Maybe that would be the really decent, non-self-indulgent thing to do.
All right, another one that you've mentioned, Caroline, is Siemens, who announced during this week that they would not bow to pressure and would make good on its contract with Adani. Now, you said that activists who complained about this should be given participation ribbons. How come?
You've had a good look through my Twitter this week.
That's right.
Look. There's a contract on foot, okay? Contracts need to be performed. Once you sign a contract, one party's saying they'll do one thing, and another party's saying we're going to pay you to do that thing. You can't just go, oh, I don't feel like it anymore because I want to save the planet and feelings and whatnot. So, look, the activists got really antsy about that this week. And look, the participation ribbon thing is just, a hark back to their own kind of principles where, points for effort. You're not going to win this one, but thanks for trying.
We had one more question for you. Now, you are a commercial litigator by trade. Now, we know that lawyers are notorious lefties. How do your colleagues take your red-hot freedom takes on Twitter and The Spectator and now the Young IPA podcast on a regular basis?
Well, I have the luxury of being a consultant, so I really get to work with who I want to work with. I'm not really employed as such anymore. I do cop a little bit. Of stick, but you'd be surprised how many people actually agree with you, and they just tell you that very quietly. They're just not particularly public about it.
That's exactly right. We find that all the time, actually. And we had a chat with Dave Rubin last year, and he said he encourages more people to speak up because when you do, you're always surprised by how many people agree with you. Now, we have got one more question for you, Caroline. We did speak earlier in the show about Megxit. Do you have any take on that? What's your opinion there?
Oh, look, I have no particular difficulty if Harry and Meghan want to not be senior royals and don't want the duties of being senior royals, that's fine. But then you don't get the perks of being a senior royal. You don't get to ride on the coattails. You don't get to, trademark Sussex Royal. And if you're going to do something like that, there's a way that you do things. And telling the Queen 10 minutes before you're going to issue a statement is not really the way to do things. That there should have been done in private. There should have been all the discussions done beforehand. And you do these things properly because not only is she your grandmother, as he said before, she's your boss. So why would you, I just don't understand the why they went about it the way they did. I think it's incredibly disrespectful considering the royals have already had a tough 12 months or so. You think you go easy on your grandma.
Yeah, I also liked it's come out this morning that Meghan she didn't even dial into the meeting with the Queen. Look, it's all in the press release. There's nothing more I have to say. Just check back with the press release. Imagine what I'd say around that.
Yeah. Gemma Tognini wrote a great piece about this in the Sunday Times, I think it was, in Western Australia about, exiting gracefully. And there's some great gags in there, so you should have a read.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Caroline, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
No worries. Anytime, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks,
See you later.
Caroline.